Africa's great empires did not collapse because they were weak. They did not disappear because they lacked intelligence, organization, or power. They fell during one of the most aggressive economic and political transformations in human history, a transformation that reshaped the world and redirected global wealth. This is not a story of African failure. It is a story of disruption, of systems broken from the outside, of thrones that did not simply fall, but were pushed. To understand how Africa's great empires collapsed, we must first understand what Africa was before they did. Africa. Before European dominance. Before European global dominance, Africa was not isolated. It was connected. Across the continent, vast trade networks linked cities, kingdoms, and empires into a functioning economic system that stretched far beyond Africa itself. The trans-Saharan trade routes connected West African cities such as Timbuktu, Gao, and Djenné with Tripoli, Tunis, Cairo, and Fez. These were not informal paths. They were regulated commercial corridors. Gold from the Bambouk and Bouré goldfields flowed north. Salt from Tagaza and Taoudeni moved south. Ivory, copper, textiles, leather goods, agricultural produce, and knowledge moved in all directions. Empires such as Ghana, Mali, and later Songhai controlled these routes through taxation, protection, and diplomacy. This trade funded standing armies, courts of law, centers of learning, and systems of governance. These were not accidental societies. They were organized states with political authority, economic strategy, and long-term stability. The power of the Mali Empire. By the 13th and 14th centuries, the Mali Empire stood as one of the most powerful economic forces in the world. Its rulers controlled access to gold that underpinned economies far beyond Africa. When Mansa Musa traveled across North Africa and the Middle East in the 14th century, his wealth was so vast that it temporarily destabilized gold markets in regions he passed through. But Mali's strength was not just gold. It was administration, law, education, diplomacy. Cities like Timbuktu became global centers of learning, housing libraries and universities that attracted scholars from across Africa and the wider Islamic world. Africa was not waiting to be discovered. It was already participating in the world. The shift begins in Europe. The collapse of Africa's great empires did not begin within Africa. It began in Europe. By the late 15th century, European powers sought to bypass African and Muslim-controlled land routes that dominated global trade. Portugal led this shift. Under the patronage of Prince Henry the Navigator, Portuguese ships moved steadily down the West African coast. In 1488, Bartolomeu Dias rounded the Cape of Good Hope. In 1498, Vasco da Gama reached India by sea. This was not exploration for curiosity. It was a strategic economic move. Sea routes replaced land routes. African states that once controlled access to wealth were suddenly bypassed, not defeated, but made economically vulnerable. From trade to interference, early European contact involved trade.
What is the leitura?
25 degrees, Capitao. We are on course.
But trade quickly turned into interference. European powers, including Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, and the Netherlands, began inserting themselves into African political systems. Firearms were introduced selectively. Some rulers were strengthened. Others were destabilized. Long-standing balances of power were disrupted. Wars became more destructive. Succession disputes intensified. Political authority weakened. This instability was not accidental. It was profitable. A divided region is easier to exploit than a united one. The transatlantic slave trade. The most devastating force to strike Africa's empires was the transatlantic slave trade. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, over 12 million Africans were forcibly removed from the continent. This was not random violence. It was an organized economic system involving Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, and the Netherlands. Entire regions, including Senegambia, the Gold Coast, the Bight of Benin, and the Bight of Biafra, were systematically targeted. Those taken were often young, skilled, and capable. Farmers, craftsmen, soldiers, future leaders. No empire can survive sustained population extraction. This was not migration. It was demographic collapse, the fall of major empires. As populations declined, political systems weakened. The Songhai Empire, once the largest state in African history, collapsed after the Moroccan invasion of 1591, weakened by disrupted trade and internal strain. The Mali Empire fragmented earlier as Atlantic trade bypassed its control of gold routes. The Kingdom of Congo, once diplomatically equal to European states, destabilized under Portuguese pressure and internal conflict linked to slave trading. The Oyo Empire weakened as warfare intensified and external dependencies grew. These were not natural declines. They were accelerated collapses driven by external disruption. Who benefited? While African states weakened, Europe expanded. African labor powered plantations across the Americas. African gold and commodities financed European ports such as Liverpool, Bristol, Nantes, Lisbon, and Amsterdam. Banks grew. Industries expanded. Empires were built. The wealth did not disappear. It moved. The story that was told. After the damage was done, a new story was told. Africa was portrayed as poor, primitive, in need of saving. Its empires were minimized, its achievements erased. This narrative justified colonization and exploitation. But broken thrones do not mean broken people. They mean interrupted history. Colonialism and its lasting structures, colonial rule, did not rebuild what had been broken.
Get below deck now! Move faster, you lazy heathens!
It reorganized Africa to serve external interests. Infrastructure was built to move resources outward, not to connect communities inward. Labor systems prioritized production over people. And when formal colonization ended, the structures remained. New flags were raised. New anthems were written. But the economic foundations did not change. Trade continued to flow outward. Debt replaced chains. Influence replaced occupation. Control became less visible, but no less powerful. Why this history still matters. This is why the collapse of Africa's empires cannot be treated as distant history. Its effects are not sealed in the past. They are active. They shape global inequality. They shape development narratives. They shape whose knowledge is considered legitimate and whose is ignored. Africa is often discussed as though it is perpetually catching up. Rarely is it acknowledged that it was deliberately held back. Continuity, not failure. And yet even within this imbalance, Africa endured. Across centuries, memory survived, culture adapted, identity persisted, carried through language, music, belief, and resistance. People carried history when institutions could not. Communities preserved dignity when systems denied it. This is not weakness, it is continuity under pressure. Broken thrones did not erase civilization, they interrupted it. And interruption is not the same as failure, because what was interrupted can be resumed. Understanding how Africa's empires fell is not about assigning guilt. It is about restoring context. It is about recognizing that decline was engineered, not inevitable, that poverty was produced, not natural, that underdevelopment was imposed, not inherited. Africa's history did not begin with colonization, and it did not end with empire. Its story stretches far before and far beyond those moments. Africa's great empires did not simply fall, they were pushed. and understanding who benefited from their collapse is essential to understanding the modern world. This is Echoes of Africa. Like and subscribe, because narratives do more than explain the past. They determine how the future is organized.